Hey everybody, it's Chris from Beer Bearings. It's Friday, welcome back, and it's time for another Mardi Gras related beer. I thought that I would continue on the theme of Carnival, and you can see I'm surrounded by shoes. I'll explain that in a minute. This week's beer, though, is from NOLA Brewing. It is Muses Belgian style pale ale, and I'm actually going to crack it open. So based on the style, I would expect it to be kind of a dark golden or even tending toward amber, and I haven't actually opened one of these yet this year. So we'll see if I'm right. Yeah, I think that's about it. So definitely kind of a very dark gold or a pale amber color. So this is a style that really dates back as far really as like the 1700s, so the early 18th century, but the more popular versions of it are from kind of the 1930s, 1920s and 30s and later. Kind of a style that grew a little bit out of World War II and visiting especially British troops. Brewers over in Belgium were looking for ways to make a beer that would appeal to them, and they hit on this. So it's kind of a version of an English pale ale, but definitely with a Belgian yeast quality. So let me stop talking and give it a little sniff and a taste for you. Yeah, so you can definitely get just that little bit of Belgian yeast quality out of it. I'll talk about that. Nice and kind of malty. It's a real treat. I'm going to enjoy this. Yeah, so again, Belgian yeast quality, and by that I mean it's a little fruity. This particular one, it's not from the hops so much, so we'll talk about all that in a second, but almost getting toward, I would say, bubble gum-ish almost, which is really more sort of a phenol, but this is a little more fruity though. Belgian beers are so complicated, and this is actually probably the most approachable of all the Belgian styles. So let's talk a little bit about Belgian beer. So in the big picture, we're used to Belgian beers really riding on the yeast in terms of a lot of their signature qualities. And Belgian yeast is a little bit different strains from the yeasts that brewers use to make just kind of run-of-the-mill pilsners and ales, but it's also got a lot to do with the fermentation temperature and the pH and all sorts of other things that brewers can manipulate. And this particular style is brewed more with accessibility in mind, and again, it's kind of an homage or a kind of a takeoff, if you will, on English style pale ales. Also fits very much in the American pale ale category, and you can see the color matches up with what you would expect from an American pale ale if you're familiar with that style. Probably everybody who's had a craft beer has had a New Belgium Fat Tire at one point or another, and I would say that actually fits very neatly in here. Fat Tire is darker than this, but it's very much in the same kind of vein. This particular one has Citra and Centennial hops, but not a whole lot of those. It's not a hoppy beer in the way that you would think of an American pale ale as having a lot of hop presence. The hops are there to just kind of balance everything out. The yeast here is the star of the show along with the malt. This actually has 3 different varieties of Weyermann malt, which is a German maltster, very old German maltster. So it's very much in the Belgian tradition with the European malts, but also it's an American craft beer through and through with the American hops. So that Citra and Centennial. Citra is usually thought of as giving kind of citrusy notes, right? And Centennial is more thought of for providing piney, resiny, kind of dank aromas and flavors. And I get just a little bit of all of that here. The Citra, I think, kind of supports the yeast character in this for me. So it makes it a really nice balance. It's just a really nice beer. NOLA Brewing does a lot of really unusual styles, but for me, one of the things they're really known for is making classic styles that are really true to the style, and sometimes that's nice too, and that's definitely the case here. So let me try one more time. You do definitely get that sort of dankness from that Centennial as all part and parcel of the really complicated palate that's going on here. So it's a really delicious beer. 4.4%, so it's sessionable, certainly by American standards, really by anybody's standards. Light-bodied, really complex flavor, delicious beer. Now you might wonder why I'm surrounded by shoes. So the beer is called Muses. It's a collaboration with the Krewe of Muses, which is an all-female crew They've been around since 2001, and they do a lot of philanthropic and charitable work in the community every year, as do most of the crews, all of the crews really. I'm actually wearing my Krewe of Red Beans jacket today. You may have noticed I wanted to give a little shout out to them. We don't have a signature beer, but we also do a lot of philanthropic work. This year, Krewe of Muses, with the fact that Mardi Gras is not really happening in terms of the parades not rolling and all that, are really focusing in on the philanthropic work, and they've got an initiative called Heal the Route, and that's H-E-E-L, the route. Shoes, heal, got it. The idea here is that you support participating businesses along St. Charles Avenue, along the parade route. You go in, you support the business, you buy something from them, you scan a QR code that they've got on site, and you can be entered into a raffle for a Krewe of Muses shoe, which is their signature throw. So a lot of crews have signature throws. Muses has chosen shoes, and they have, as you can see, they decorate shoes very elaborately with glitter and other elements that they hot glue on. I can tell you from being in the Krewe of Red Beans that the glue gun is your friend when it comes to decorating your costume or your throws or whatever it is. So I've got a few here. These are both from 2016. And this one is from 2020, and I was not even allowed to take this out of the paper, or of the plastic, I should say. This is how they're transported to the parade route and handed lovingly over the side of the throat. They don't toss these because that might actually hurt somebody. And pardon me for any crinkling here, but so they're in these bags, and they will pick somebody out of the crowd and gently hand it down over the side. Often it's a small child, although with Muses it's quite often somebody who's really interested in the shoe. I'll just leave it at that. I kind of covet one of the Doc Martens, actually, so for anyone who's listening and sees me out there on a future year, if you have some Doc Martens you want to hand over the side, I'm all about it. They are not for wearing, they are for display. I was allowed to pull these down off the shelf and put them around for you guys to look at. So Muses, where does that come from? So the tradition of naming Mardi Gras crews in New Orleans quite often has revolved around using Greek or Roman gods or goddesses as inspiration. So we have the Krewe of Rex, we have Bacchus we talked about last week. We have Endymion and all sorts of other crews that are in that vein. Muses, the Muses were the 9 daughters of Zeus in Greek mythology, and they were the inspiration for the arts, right? So they've each got their own kind of area of the arts that they're in charge of, if you will, and there are actually streets in New Orleans named for the Muses. So it's all very appropriate and all kind of part and parcel of New Orleans and the tradition. I love this crew because it's a traditional crew in that they are named for Greek mythology or named out of Greek mythology, but also that they have these spangly, cool throws. They're all female. There are just lots of things to love about the Krewe of Muses. So every year, NOLA Brewing does this collaboration beer with them, part of the proceeds from which go to their philanthropic efforts, and it's just an easy drinker. You can carry it around with you, again, all day on the parade route. If you're out on the parade route, this year we're not, but we can still walk around. I just bumped a shoe, sorry. But this year we can walk around and see those house floats that I talked about last time, or just enjoy yourself on the porch, frankly, for Mardi Gras this time around. So that's what I've got for this week. Great beer from NOLA Brewing. Go out and get yourself some. It's available now on tap and also in cans around town. And whatever you get up to this week or this weekend, enjoy yourself. Let me know what's in your glass, and I'll see you next time right here on Beer of the Week.